Hey, welcome. Think about the countless decisions you make every single day. But what if a choice wasn't just a single event that happens to you? What if it was something you could actually design, something you could build? Well, today we're going to explore exactly that. The architecture of choice, a way to systematically get better at how you decide. So let me start by asking you this. Are you the one consciously building your choices? Or are you just kind of reacting, letting your circumstances and impulses build a life for you? Getting a grip on that process is what this is all about. So here's our game plan. First, we'll talk about what choice architecture even is. Then we'll build its foundation with the core engine of reason. After that, we'll tackle the tricky stuff, like our own biases, and then we'll get into the cognitive tools you can use. We'll follow a choice all the way to its consequence, and we'll finish up with the ultimate goal, the pursuit of wisdom. All right, let's dive right in. The main idea here is that your decisions aren't just moments in time. They are structures that you build. And like any good building, they need a solid blueprint, that comes from reflection, and the right materials, which is calculation. It's a skill, and it's one you can absolutely improve. You know, every great building needs a foundation that will not move. For our decision making, that unshakable foundation is reason. This is where we lay the groundwork, the analytical core that makes sure our choices are strong and well thought out. The first pillar of that foundation, analysis. Now, forget the textbook definition for a minute. Just think of it like being a good mechanic. When a car's broken, they don't just stare at it. They pop the hood, they listen, they isolate the problem. Analysis is just that. Breaking a big, complex problem down into its smaller parts so you can see what's really going on, instead of just going with a gut feeling. So if analysis is taking things apart, logic is what lets you put them back together in a way that actually makes sense. It's the rule book for thinking straight. It's what makes sure your conclusions logically follow from your evidence, so A plus B actually equals C. And what are we building all of this with? Information. But here's the crucial part. More is not always better. Not by a long shot. It's the quality, the relevance, and the reliability of your information that really matters. The real skill here is learning how to filter out all the noise to find that one piece of signal that counts. So you see, it all comes together in this really simple but powerful process. First, you gather good raw material. That's your information. Then, you break it down to see how it works. That's analysis. And finally, you make sure your thinking is sound. That's logic. This right here is the rational engine room of any solid decision. Okay, so we've got our perfect rational blueprint. Great, but any architect will tell you you have to account for the land you're building on. And for us, that land is our own human nature. Our messy, unpredictable, and often biased minds that can mess with even the best laid plans. And this really gets to the heart of it all. It's a constant tug of war, isn't it? On one side, you have this clean, perfect world of pure logic. And on the other side, well, you have reality, our own internal wiring, our biases and emotions that are always pulling us away from that perfect ideal. So what is bias, really? It's when these non-rational things sneak into our thinking. And it's so important to remember, having biases doesn't make you flawed. It's just part of the human operating system. You can't just delete the software. The real goal is to be aware of it so you can adjust and calibrate for it. And right alongside bias, you've got its partner, uncertainty. This isn't a failure on your part. It's just a fundamental condition of life. The world is ridiculously complex. You're never going to know or control everything. And you know what? Accepting that is actually freeing. It forces us to be more creative, more adaptable, and to think in terms of probabilities, not certainties. So how do we possibly build sturdy decision structures when we're working on the shaky ground of our own biases and a world full of unknowns? We use tools. And this next section is all about the cognitive toolkit you can use to manage all that complexity. The most important tools in your kit are frameworks. You can think of them as cognitive blueprints or scaffolding for your mind. They give you a structure to organize all the complexity, and they help discipline your thinking, turning what could be a chaotic reaction into a methodical process. Now, within these frameworks, we have different kinds of models. This table breaks it down nicely. You have normative models, which describe how we should make decisions if we were perfectly logical robots. Then you have descriptive models, which describe how we actually make decisions, like how we tend to fear losing $20 more than we enjoy gaining $20. You really have to understand both the ideal and the reality to make progress. Another key tool is the heuristic. It's just a fancy word for a mental shortcut. And look, these can be incredibly useful when you need to make a fast decision. But, and this is a huge but, without some self-awareness, that shortcut can lead you right into a cognitive trap. The key is what's called metacognitive oversight. Basically, it's the ability to step back and ask yourself, hey, is this shortcut really taking me where I want to go? Or is it just the easiest path? Okay, so we've designed our structure, we've gathered our tools. Now, it's time to actually build this thing. This section is all about that journey from the internal world of thinking to the external world of action and consequence. I love this quote. Every choice marks a commitment to one possible world among many. Just think about the weight of that. When you choose one path, you are, by definition, closing the door on all the others. It's a powerful act of shaping your own reality. And the journey doesn't stop when you make the choice. Not at all. This timeline shows you the whole life cycle. First, you have the choice itself. Then comes the execution, actually putting it into action. That produces a yield, or an outcome. And finally, the most crucial part, validation. That's the feedback loop, where we actually learn from the result. Execution really is the critical bridge between your thoughts and reality. A perfect blueprint is completely useless if the construction is shoddy. This is where your intention becomes a real consequence, and it takes will, coordination, and just plain persistence to see it through. And the outcome of that execution is the yield. It is so important to see this not as a final grade, not as a pass or a fail on your decision. Instead, think of it as a signal. It's just feedback that tells you how to refine your process and improve your architecture for the next decision, and the one after that. Which brings us to our final section. After we've mastered the process, built the foundation, and learned from our outcomes, what's left? We move from being a mere technician of choice to becoming a master architect. This is the pursuit of wisdom. So, what is wisdom? Well, it's the peak where all these skills come together. It goes way beyond just calculating probabilities. It brings in empathy, a feel for timing, and a healthy dose of humility. Wisdom is what transforms decision-making from just a technical skill into a kind of moral art. So we end right where we started, but now you have a full set of blueprints. Your next decision is waiting just around the corner. So the question is, what will its architecture look like? Will it be built on a solid foundation of reason? Will it be ready for your own biases? Will it be designed not just for good outcome, but for the wisdom it's going to give you? The choice, as always, is yours.